Okay. 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 We can kind of breathe a little bit now because I know the hype for week one. It was building up. Week one is officially in the books. We are now looking ahead to week two. I'm going to give you my recap analysis. I'm going to give you also my analysis on some of the claims that were made. A lot of things were expected in week one. You're going to have a few teams that outperformed their projections. You had a few teams that already caught the injury bug, and then you have a few teams that pretty much don't know what's going on. Let me recap that. So looking at what just happened in week one. Now I know we always get carried away with these overreactions. I'm going to give you my perfect analysis for every fantasy team right now. When I look at what happened in week one, and yes, it is week one, and I'll stress that again. I think I've seen three teams that I think are certainly playoff contenders right off the bat. I'm going down the list, and I said, you know what? If managed properly, and that's the key. Management, no matter what it is in life, is key. And then I look at three teams on the other end, and I honestly think, unless some miracle, yes, I'll say it again, some miracle happens, I do not think these teams are going anywhere. I think they might be done, unfortunately. And then when you take those six teams, well, guess what? Half of them you like. The other half, I think the consensus of the league is we don't like them. And then everybody else I think is kind of like bunched up, and I think it's all about consistent trends year in and year out. So honestly, man, very interesting thoughts on week one. Let me just give my recaps. Number one, I'll start with something that I did kind of call. And I know it's week one, but I don't like what I saw already. I was one of the few people who was not on the New Orleans Saints defense at all. I think a lot of shit went right for them last year, excuse my French. No, Ryan Fitzpatrick is not back on the fantasy radar. No, Mike Evans is not in that elite wide receiver one category. And no, Deshaun Jackson is not 22 years old again, okay? I don't buy any of that stuff. I just think that the Saints defense, too many things went right for them last year. Not buying it at all. Let's talk about the hype train and Pat Mahomes. Now, 36 points, phenomenal. We have to factor in that Joey Bosa wasn't in there, and it was the first time Andy Reid schemed up for Pat Mahomes. Is he going to drop 30 every week? No, he's not in that elite tier. Will he have weeks like that again? Absolutely. But there's a lot of things you have to look at with Pat Mahomes, and when I go to David's matchup, I'll break it down a little bit more. A few other things. James Conner is probably going to be the lottery ticket winner. I mean, it looks like it at this point. So congratulations to Andre. Second off, all right, I think that one of the most interesting situations that a lot of people are not kind of talking about is necessarily the comparison with the Rams wide receivers and the Detroit Lions wide receivers. There's something that they have in common, and both teams do not have a tight end. Therefore, what you've seen already on how the game plan is going to open up is that all three wide receivers will generate around 10 targets per game. I think that's the way it's going to happen. I do think that there are going to be some weeks that are better than others, but I don't think you have to worry about these guys ever getting phased out in the offense. So if you're an owner of Cooks, Woods, Kupp, Marvin Jones, Golden Tate, Kenny Golladay, I don't think you have to worry about that. And it looks like the defense that is putting the world on notice is, and I'll say it again because I am getting a little bit tired of this freaking shenanigans that's going on. My New York Jets, their defense, now I am not buying the hype, okay? I want to calm down a little bit there. I just think they had a really good game plan. But this defense is up and coming and is talented, and you could be looking at that next up and coming defense. Those are a few of my thoughts. Obviously, I can't recap every game or else this podcast would be 3 hours long. But it was very, very interesting. The other thing I want to talk about is the update for the game recaps of the week. And this is a really good way to kind of analyze your team. Now, you can analyze it from this week looking forward. But I think it's better if you kind of, we need more. What's the word I'm looking for? Hold on, it's coming to me. We need some more data. And the way they broke up the pie charts. Now, I am a teacher, so I'll break this down for you, for those of you that are a little bit confused on how they broke it down. It's the same thing. They tell you about who scored the highest points and whatnot, but they also break down a percentage of your team's points. So if you put up, this is the way I'm seeing it, right? And then I'll give you my analysis. If you put up in the 140s, and I think there was quite a few of us, I think there was about, technically you could put 5, because if Allen had a quarterback, I think he'd easily be in there, but that's almost half the league put up 140. Now, is that sustainable? Absolutely not. When you look at that pie chart, if you had a guy that dropped an insane amount of 40 points. Now, the one chart that I looked at, and this team did not put up a lot, but it was David's. Pat Mahomes put up 40 points, and his percentage was around 40% of his team's total. That's a good indicator to decide, okay, well, if I had one guy go off and that percentage is high, I struggled to get this win. However, if you had a lot of guys in that percentage bracket that were hitting a floor of, I don't know, maybe you had 3 guys that hit 12, and then you look at that pie chart and you got your leading guy that's around 25% and everything else is around that teens to low 20s percentage, that's the breakdown of a well-balanced team. Now, when I look at this, I do believe that what I saw from the 140s, obviously this crap is not sustainable. However, I believe that the indicators on the 140s definitely showed some of the team's upsides that were already hit. Whereas I think if you were in that 110-ish to 120, I think you're kind of around that floor area. And if you were lower than that, there's a lot of factors that are being involved to contribute with that. I'm sorry, guys. I've had a long day with these words. So that's the way I would say it. Now, there's 2 teams in particular, and there's one I'm bigger on than the next, and I'm going to make a lot of bold statements. So find something to do for about an hour, whether it's being productive, maybe it's cleaning the room, maybe you got meal prep, maybe, I don't know, you're watching a boring documentary and you want to watch movies with the sound off. Haha. Rest in peace, Mac Miller. Maybe you want to do something that listen, because I'm going to break down which teams I'm buying, which teams I am officially just writing off. I know it's a little harsh, but if you want my honest opinion, this is why I do this for you guys. It's going to be an interesting take. And what do I predict in week 2 for these matchups? Right off the bat, looking at the matchups, I think we are in for a lot of blowouts. And I think the matchup of the week is kind of by default. I think the matchup of the week is the only 2 teams that are, to say undefeated at 1-0 is ridiculous, but I mean, I can't really find, as far as what the point totals were last week, I can't find a better matchup to go with it. Once again, thank you guys for tuning out, and we're going to get started with the first matchup. Real quickly before we get on to the first matchup of the week, there is one thing I did forget to do, and I apologize, and that is going over each waiver claim. I don't think any of these guys are sustainable for their point totals. With that being said, the only claims that were kind of made, I'm not counting Case Keenum because for some reason Harsh burned his claim and and then dropped him, so I don't understand what's going on with that. But Phillip Lindsay, if anything, I think he's this year's Austin Eckler. I don't think he's going to be a guy that's an upside lottery ticket. However, he is a sustainable floor if you need somebody to kind of fill in there. I do think his floor is like at that 8-point range, maybe. And yeah, I mean, there's nothing really big about the guy at all. But he's a good floor guy. Ryan Grant was the next claim claimed by me. Honestly, the way I see it, Ryan Grant, nothing spectacular. He's an average wide receiver. However, if we were hyped for Dante Moncrief, how much better is Dante Moncrief than Ryan Grant? I don't know. And he's got a good quarterback, and he got 9 targets in week 1, and this team's going to be behind. So I'm factoring in those things. Ryan Grant might be a guy who could put up close to Dante Moncrief numbers, which wasn't spectacular, but for a last flex, you might survive with that. And then last but not least, Jared Cook. I'm going to make this short, simple, and sweet. I've seen this movie before with Jared Cook, and he disappears forever. So if this guy becomes all of a sudden I don't know, what are we in with him, 8, 9, 10 breakout season, okay, But nonetheless, when I believe Andre had the number one waiver claim, it's not, or not, excuse me, not number one, the last one, it's not like it cost him anything. So why not? All right, let's go to the first matchup of the week right here. Two teams going up against each other. One team, I think everybody kind of knew after the draft what was going to be expected with this team. He put fantasy on notice. And then another team, and I know I am a little bit harsh on this manager's management in the past. I am giving him a free pass because it is not his fault that his running back has decided to kind of screw over his own organization, or if you're pro Le'Veon Bell, the organization screwing him over. And that's Brian taking on Johnny J. Fresh. And without any running backs or any starting running backs, this one's going to get really, really ugly. Let's go deep down into it. Cam Newton at Atlanta, Phillip Rivers at Buffalo. If there's one thing for Brian that you can rely on week in and week out, and it is Phillip Rivers and the Chargers putting up points. I don't see a 30-point game, and if they do, well, then that's crazy because he should be benched by the third quarter because this game is going to be, oh, God. It might be 28-0 at the half. Cam Newton, not the biggest point total, but when you've got him running, especially with the line dinged up, that only increases his fantasy value. Greg Olsen not there. That, I don't know if that increases. It stays the same because he can't throw it, but he might run it when they go to the red zone. Bottom line is this. The Atlanta Falcons don't have Deion Jones, who was fantastic last year, and they don't have Keanu Neal. Yeah, that spells a lot of trouble for that linebacking core and that safety core. I like Cam Newton a lot, and I like Phillip Rivers a lot, so I don't see that the quarterbacks are going to be that much of a factor against one another. This is an interesting start. You must have just changed this. Adam Thielen and Robbie Anderson as the 1-2 punch for Johnny J. Fresh, taking on Mike Evans and Stephon Diggs. So right off the bat, when you look at Brian's team, Rivers with Evans and Diggs, not terrible matchups. I don't think any cornerback can guard Mike Evans one-on-one. I think you saw that with Marshawn Lattimore last week. Lattimore is a decent corner. I don't know if I'm ready to push him in that elite tier. Mike Evans just wins with his size. He's physical, and Fitzpatrick has a good chemistry with him. It's not like Jameis Winston could only throw him the ball. And then Stephon Diggs, we can't say enough. Guy is a stud. Those guys, I think, look to hit their projections. Adam Thielen, now, this is interesting because you got both Minnesota Vikings wide receivers going up against each other. Now, me personally, and I understand this kid is like going off on me, but don't put words in my mouth that I didn't say. I never said Adam Thielen was a bust. I understand it. If I say something little, I love it how you want to come and attack me. And I get it because it's your boy. It's like a mama bear who, when somebody comes out there, little bear, mama bear got to come in there. I mean, whatever. I mean, all I said was if Kendall Wright made the team, Thielen might not be in the slot all the time, and I think he benefited from the slot. Hence why you saw Emmanuel Sanders now become very, very, very fantasy relevant again, because Case Keenum loves slot wide receivers. That's all I said. I did not say, oh, Kendall Wright's going to take him over. This is what you said, okay? Yeah, Kendall Wright's going to make the team, making Adam Thielen irrelevant. No, I didn't say that. All I said was I think that maybe his catches go down. The yardage total was a lot last year. I think we saw his ceiling last year. I think Adam Thielen is a really good wide receiver, but his numbers were pretty good. I just want to clarify this, and if you don't believe me, I have not deleted that video on YouTube. Go back what I said, please. Thank you. Anyway, it's interesting because if Adam Thielen has a monstrous game or Stephon Diggs has a monstrous game, that could really ruin the other effect. Robbie Anderson. Now, this is interesting, and I think the fantasy world is going a little bit too crazy in Quincy Enunwa. Now, me being as a Jets fan, Quincy Enunwa, this is my take on Quincy Enunwa. Fantastic guy, possession over the middle of the field. I've loved his talent. I think he's a phenomenal hybrid tight end / wide receiver because he's freaking huge. This guy's height is what's going to attract Sam Darnold as a rookie quarterback over the middle of the field. He will get his targets. But all of a sudden, I'm looking at all these rankings and all these people who are overreacting. I saw Robbie Anderson ranked as the 40th wide receiver on one site. Let's calm down, please. I understand the one target and everybody wants to fall in love with target share. It's 1 week, guys. Not to mention the fact that it wasn't on that play, but do you think Darius Slay would rather be on Robbie Anderson or Quincy Enunwa? I think Robbie Anderson bounces back in this one. He was phenomenal at home last year, especially. Miami doesn't have any corners. The one thing that I am a little bit nervous with Robbie Anderson's value is the consistency of Darnold being able to throw it downfield to him. Robbie Anderson did bail him out on that one. It was a little tad bit underthrown, and I know we want to talk about the hype with Darnold and whatnot, but that's just my personal take on that. But I do think Robbie Anderson will probably get one against the Miami Dolphins. So yeah, I think, and the Jets are going to have to be in a balanced attack. That's what I like to see, so it's not like they're just a run-first team. Overall, who am I going to give the matchup to? Well, I mean, I'm high on Stephon Diggs. I'm high on Mike Evans as well for these matchups, so I'll give the edge to Brian here. I'm sorry, Brian, you might want to turn this off because this is where the matchup is just the knockout punch. Running backs, I don't really need to say much. I really don't need to say much. Tight end, I really don't need to say much. If you drafted Jimmy Graham, you need to rely on the Green Bay Packers getting in the red zone. And when I'm looking at this guy, I see an image of a really old Antonio Gates. It's somebody who's really, really big. He's still got the size, but he doesn't have the quickness. He doesn't have the moves. And at times, it looks like this guy needs an inhaler on the field. It's a shame because I was a big Jimmy Graham fan. I won a championship with Jimmy Graham. I didn't want anything to do with Jimmy Graham because you're treating him like a goal line fullback vulture. I think he's the number 4 option on this team. Now, do you really want that as your starting tight end? That's just my personal opinion. Although Gronk has a really bad matchup, and I think the New England Patriots might have a tough time. Then we're going to go into the flex options. Brandon Marshall, I understand why you would get hyped on it. Now, personally, my take on the Seattle Seahawks wide receivers, it's going to be nobody you can rely on week in and week out. Russell Wilson does not have a go-to guy. Everybody kind of plays their role. Tyler Lockett doesn't do anything for about 70% of the game, and then he revs it up for one play or two, and then you need really to rely on that. And then everybody else is, okay, everybody else go open. And those tight ends is, okay, the defense is kind of slant or crashing left. Let's roll to the left, and let's go back shoulder fade to a tight end on the right-hand side, sorry. They have to scheme up for the tight ends. They really have to. I am not buying any passing attack in this one. Royce Freeman, I understand the Phillip Lindsay hype. I get it. Let's not forget Royce Freeman still had around 16 to 17 carries. Now, the thing that really is going to be bothering as a Royce Freeman owner is the fact that now there's a little bit of a dent in his value right now, which stinks because I think this guy is phenomenal. But the Denver Broncos are not going to be a team that are going to be trailing behind a lot. They've got a good defense and they got a capable quarterback. Therefore, the only thing that I'm looking at this team, and I'm talking about Johnny, the only thing that is interesting is because he's got two guys that are kind of in the same tier, with Jay Ajayi leading the elite tier guy, meaning of the Alfred Morris tier, meaning I don't get catches, but I need to rely on touchdowns to become fantasy relevant. I think Jay Ajayi is number 1 on that list. You could probably argue that Freeman will eventually become number 2, and then you go down the list, maybe Derrick Henry now falls into that category. Obviously, Peyton Barber is in that category, and yeah, Alfred Morris is back in that category as well. So that's just my personal opinion. So I'm just going to break down your matchup. Will Royce Freeman score a touchdown against the Oakland Raiders? Bet the mortgage on it. I think he hits 16 points. George Kittle, with who's out? Goodwin might not be in. I don't think it matters, though. This guy's clearly going to become Garoppolo's number 1 or 2 guy in the offense. I think that their offense didn't even look that bad when I was watching it. There were a few. 2 of the picks were not his fault. The receivers slipped, and you get my drift. Chris Hogan against Jacksonville? No, thank you. No, thank you. Baltimore at Cincinnati. Oh, God. And Houston at Tennessee. Both those defenses are not bad matchups, especially with the line. So that's a sneaky play by Brian, but I think this is just going to be the running backs are going to just wipe the floor. It's a shame that your pick's not playing, and unfortunately, Brian, if Le'Veon Bell, it doesn't look like he's going to play. And even if he does, I think it's going to be a little too late, man. So I'm sorry you're stuck in this position. Meanwhile, Johnny is going to move on to 2-0. And I wish him and I wish Brian the best of luck, and hopefully it doesn't get really bad for you, because if you become relevant without a Le'Veon Bell, that's pretty impressive. That's my take on the first game. All right, here we go. Now this next matchup, number 2 matchup, based on ranking, meaning that it's the second lowest. 2 managers. One got completely embarrassed, and it was almost like a spit in the face. And how this person is still standing here today, shocking. This other guy is our former champ, 2-time champ, puts up a phenomenal week, but only loses to somebody who did a lot better week 1. I'm talking about Rob Coffey taking on Matt Morris. Now, Matt Morris was a victim of a QB-less Allen who dropped 130. Ouch. And then when I look at the other side of Rob Coffey, well, we learned one thing. The fantasy gods are going to make him work for that 3rd championship. Hey, I have no control over what the gods do. That's just the way they operate. Now, I know Rob Coffey, did a little, post-game / pre-game interview for this week, and he flat out tells me he's got that Belichick mindset. You know how he is. He's, very superstitious. He doesn't want to jinx shit. He takes any game like it's a regular game, and he doesn't doubt anybody. But he has some high praise for this opponent because he's the only one to beat him in his Super Bowl. And his track record shows that Morris consistently puts up ridiculous games. So that is lingering in his mind. But with a lot of uncertainty in the Matt Morris team, it does not look very, very promising. Breeze against Cleveland, Alex Smith against Indianapolis. Really good streaming option there. I know Rob Coffey does not have the luxury of Carson Wentz. And this is why Rob Coffey, my stance on the Rob Coffey team this year, personally, I'm putting it on hold. Because I think I need to see what happens with Carson Wentz. He's definitely, if you told me wild card at least, absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to disrespect the champ like that. I mean, what kind of man would I be if I disrespected a champ like that? Come on. Hot take. Anyway, the reason why I'm putting it on hold is because he does not have the luxury of Carson Wentz. And you look at what he did week 1, and I understand it's only week 1, but he put up 140 with Mitchell Trubisky. Now when you go down the quarterback line, you got Alex Smith at home. Oh, that's pretty good. As the Indianapolis Colts projected for 20 points. I think he might even get more than that. I think it's 25. I know a lot of people are big on Adrian Peterson, but they just gave this guy around 30 carries. I can see definitely a passing attack / Chris Thompson type of game, considering that they struggled to get some air yardage against the Arizona Cardinals. I expect Paul Richardson touchdown. I expect a Jordan Reed 1, definitely maybe even 2 touchdown performance. And Chris Thompson, who only touches the ball 7 times, probably going to take one in as well because that's what he does. But then let's not discount Drew Brees at home. When Brees is at home, I think the over-under should be set at 30, and I think he hits the over. Odell Beckham Jr. and Danny Amendola taking on Devontae Adams and Juju Smith-Schuster. So this is interesting because Adams pops up on the injury report with a shoulder injury, and that doesn't look good for the Green Bay Packers because they're dealing with a lot right now. Needless to say, it looks like he should suit up against the Minnesota Vikings. There were some highlights last year I remember where Adams got the best of Xavier Rhodes. The only thing that's going to stink for Devontae Adams is if they consistently roll coverage over the top. With that being said, Harsh, if you're listening to this, this looks like it could be another Randall Cobb game, and I think you should sell high immediately once he goes off in this game. Juju Smith-Schuster, okay. No matter what, pick a team. 11, and I'm talking about 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Doesn't matter. He's going to hit that point because he's got the ultimate floor in the world. Odell Beckham against Dallas. I don't see anybody stopping this guy. Danny Amendola against the New York Jets. I don't know what to make about this receiving core in Miami. We know who the number 1 guy is. I think it's a committee for number 2 on a week-to-week basis. Boy, this is tough. I think for safety purposes, got to go Coffey, Jordan Howard and Isaiah Crowell, Alvin Kamara and Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, I don't know what's going on there. He's touchdown or bust. I think that's what you're kind of dealing with at this. I mean, not at this point because it's only 1 week. So He did break off a long run, but I don't know if the volume will consistently be there. Alvin Kamara, stud. Jordan Howard, stud. Isaiah Crowell had a 2-touchdown performance against the Miami Dolphins. I like the way they're utilizing 2 Jets backs and not 3 because it allows both them get into rhythm in specific series. But I got to go Kamara and Derrick Henry. Just because Kamara, I think, that dude's projected 22 points. I mean, he might have another game where he goes off, and it doesn't matter what Howard and Crowell combined for it. They might equal what Kamara did it. Damn. Evan Ingram and Kyle Rudolph. Not big on either of the guys in this matchup, so I'm not going to put that much in the factor. The reason why Matt might be making Coffey a little bit nervous is because this might be the one week where Matt actually has viable flexes in TJ Yeldon and Funny Michelle. But you know what? TJ Yeldon, he's projected at 9. He's got to be touchdown reliant. I think Corey Grant gets a lot. There's no way they're going to give TJ Yeldon the ball 16, 20 times. Aguilar, I know a lot of people are hyped on him. I don't understand the Nelson Aguilar hype, and I know you're probably marking this down. I don't know. He's just an average receiver. Sanders, oh God, stud. Washington against Indy. I'm surprised nobody hopped on that. That might have been in my personal opinion, the best defensive pickup that happened this week. I just think there's too much firepower. I mean, we saw that he put up 140 last week with Mitchell Trubisky. And even with a dinged-up Devontae Adams and a Derrick Henry that looks like he's running nowhere, you're probably going to get close to 130, 140 yet again. And I just think with the lack of flexes, and obviously a defense to be determined, I don't know, man. I gotta go with Coffey, who's gonna get his first win despite putting up 140 last week. Next matchup that I'm gonna talk about. On paper, this does not look like a matchup that anybody's really excited for. There's no bad blood between these two teams, but the reason why I put this at 3 and not number 1 and not number 2 is because I think this matchup could be close depending on the health of certain players. I'm talking about Harsh versus David. The Texans stack that the Vintage One has implemented laid an egg in Foxborough. On the flip side, Pat Mahomes tried to carry the team, and I don't know what happened to David's team last week. I don't think that's what it's going to be every single week. Let's get into it. Watson at Tennessee, Mahomes at Pittsburgh. I think the Titans overachieved last year. People are hyping up Malcolm Butler like he's this really good corner. I don't think he's that good personally. I've kind of been saying that. And Logan Ryan's like, all right, they're getting all these New England pieces, but they're not in New England anymore, so they can't cover their flaws. So Watson might be a little bit better than he was last week. Mahomes at Pittsburgh. This looks like the DraftKings stack of the week. Kansas City and Pittsburgh, my God, 40, 60 points. I don't know what the heck is going to happen. We'll see how he does. This is his second road game. I expect Andy Reid to kind of switch it up. I got to give Kareem Hunt at least 1 touchdown. Who do I give the advantage to? I'm going to have to go to Deshaun Watson simply for the fact I understand that the Steelers have beaten the Chiefs, but that was with Alex Smith. But I really like Deshaun Watson as the bounce back. But I don't know, man. It's tough. I'm going to say a draw just because I think Mahomes is healthy. It would be foolish of me to take a iffy Deshaun Watson. Hopkins and Mike Williams, Julio Jones and John Brown. This is a pretty wow. Talk about even. This is an even combo right here. You got 2 elite wide receivers going head-to-head in very favorable matchups. And then you got guys with some upside maybe in Mike Williams and John Brown. Now, one thing Harsh had to love to see, I know it was a bad week, but it was Mike Williams becoming not including the running backs, the number 2 target behind Keenan Allen, and this was all in the second half. I think it's because the Chiefs were keying on Keenan Allen, and he found a way to get open. I think Mike Williams' performance wasn't as good, but it was very similar to Kenny Galladay's. The quarterback was taking advantage of the weaker side of the field. I do think they're going to try to rev up this guy's confidence. I am going to call a prediction right now. I think Mike Williams gets a second half touchdown to get his confidence going, because that's what the Chargers are going to need. John Brown. This was the only Ravens wide receiver. If you asked me to pick one I wanted to own, it was John Brown. Simply for the fact that he goes deep, and guess who else? Joe Flacco likes to throw deep. I think he might not have a great game. Joe Flacco's on the road. I still think Joe Flacco is a really bad quarterback on the road. Bengals defense looked decent, but then again, it's against a really crappy Indianapolis offensive line. I don't see much from the Ravens and Cincinnati Bengals, to be honest with you. You're looking at a 15-9 ball game here, guys. It's not going to be pretty. It's a classic Thursday night game. Now watch as I say this. Whoa, 35-38. What happened? But I mean, I'm not big. I'm not big on the upside. Speaking of guys who looked really good, now it doesn't show in the fantasy score, but as far as health is concerned, Dalvin Cook looked phenomenal, and he's taking on an injured Devonta Freeman and Chris Carson, LaShawn McCoy. Look, okay, Shady McCoy can't be as bad as he was last week. I think Dalvin Cook and Latavius Murray are going to get going, and early in this one, got to give the running back advantage to David, simply for the fact that this is where Harsh is most vulnerable, is in the running back department. Ricky Field taking on Zach Ertz. Now, we get it. Every single year, there is always a team that is the streamable guys against tight ends. Happens every single year. We see what Jared Cook does with 12 targets against the Rams, and everybody's saying, oh my god, it's because, they got one corner here, they got one corner here, and guess what? They've got no linebackers. I'm just going to pick up the guy. All right, I understand the trend. I actually did like Ricky Seals-Jones a lot. But this offense looked really bad. Ricky Seals-Jones could generate a lot of targets, but either the Washington defense is for real, or their line looked really bad. And considering that David Johnson didn't have anything to do, I think their line's pretty bad. I got to go with Zach Ertz. I think the Tampa Bay defense is nothing spectacular, right? I am not going to hop on the trend yet. I'm not. I think the Raiders actually have a better offense than Arizona, personally. Not hopping on the trend. Give me Zach Ertz. Allen Robinson, 2. Brandon Cooks taking on Funchess and Travis Kelce. Well, the guy who was really hard to figure out in my rankings this year was Devin Funchess. I love what he did in the second half last year. Once Kelvin Benjamin got traded, he clearly became Cam's favorite target. Then you have people putting up stats with that. Without Greg Olsen, Funchess was the man. Now Greg Olsen comes back, value goes down. They draft DJ Moore, value goes down. I don't understand why people are hating on Devin Funchess so much. Yes, he's not your prototypical route-running wide receiver. Yes, there's always that factor that Cam Newton doesn't need a number one wide receiver because he's Cam. But you got to figure that the target share is going to go up now, and it's against the Atlanta Falcons, whose corners are average, but it's nothing to write home about. True Font's a good corner. I don't know if he can physically match up with the height advantage of Devin Funchess. He looks like to be a primed red zone target as well. Travis Kelce, now let's be honest here, guys. Travis Kelce also had a down week. I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to open him up a lot. Pittsburgh's going to look at what Tyreek Hill did, and if they have a defense, they're going to game plan for Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill will still get his, but most of the game they're going to open up lanes for Travis Kelce. But then you got Brandon Cooks and Allen Robinson too. Brandon Cooks, it's not a Brandon Cooks week. Unfortunately, I think it's a Cooper Kupp week because of Patrick Peterson. And then Allen Robinson too. Could be a decent matchup. Chicago Bears against Seattle is a phenomenal pickup. Harsh props to you. Dallas. Ooh, Dallas's defense against the New York Giants, also nice. All right, I've been doing a lot of talking. Time for me to pick a winner. I think it's going to be close, but I think the department where Harsh is lacking at is the running back department. Let's talk about the keys to victory. If Harsh is to get an upset on David's team's got to lay another egg, number one. Number two, Mike Williams has to break out. Chris Carson or Devonta Freeman, I think, needs one touchdown. Asking for both is just too much. And you got to hope that Patrick Peterson is not on Brandon Cooks. But by the looks of it, because of him drawing so many PI penalties, looks like Patrick Peterson's going to be on Brandon Cooks. Those things need to... Oh, and obviously the Texans need to be healthy. Let's not forget that. I do personally think, Harsh, somebody bring up this stat, go look it up, and say, Nick, you were right. If I'm not mistaken, Watson didn't really do well until Will Fuller was active. Now, from a fantasy standpoint, I think Will Fuller is the key to this offense that people keep hating. No, I don't want him for fantasy, but the guy opens up so much for everything. Somebody look that up. Tell me, Will Fuller was active week 3 or 4. It was against New England, and he didn't play. I think you need Will Fuller for Deshaun Watson to be... I'm not hating on Deshaun Watson. I just think you can do so much with the playbook when Will Fuller is in there. That's just me personally. And if Will Fuller is not out there, man, I don't know. I'm not saying start Will Fuller, but you need him as that decoy guy to open up the playbook. So you need a lot to happen. David, you need to hope Patrick Mahomes makes you happy every single time. Julio Jones has monster games against the Carolina Panthers. So you can bank on that. Dalvin Cook needs to... I don't want to say take over the backfield because obviously he's the leading guy, but they're not going to phase out Latavius Murray. But you need Devin Funchess to step up, and you need Travis Kelce to be part of the game plan for once. Those are the keys to victory. When it comes down to it, I'm picking David for a bounce back week. All right. This is a tale of two different teams. One team, unfortunately, had quite the injury bug week 1, and a lot of people are starting to doubt the potential now for this team. While I am not sticking a fork in it because it is week 1, there's a lot of things that are going to have to be figured out with one team. And then this team made history in our league. This team went out. This team goes out and wins without a quarterback. I don't care who the matchup of the opponent was. He still put up 130 without a quarterback. You know what, dude? There's no way I can kind of disrespect that. That was pretty ballsy, number 1. Number 2, I gotta show props. And I'm about to make a big statement here. So if you're listening, call me. Nick, you're on something else. Come on, do you really think that's going to happen? I'm starting to see the light. I need to go on a rant for this manager a little bit. I'm going to get him very hyped up on this. I'm going to get myself a little bit hyped up because I might even send some trade offers to this guy. I'm having deja vu. What do I mean by that? All right. Now shut up. I don't want to hear any overreaction comments because I want this kid to live in the moment. I need to live in the moment when I go on a rant on this team because I actually love what I'm seeing right now. If there's one thing about Allen, no, he doesn't have a ring. And I talked to him on Sunday. I looked at him in the eye and I said, dude, you are the third down running back whisperer for fantasy football. I don't know what it is, but every time this guy takes the third down running backs, they all become beasts. When we take third down running backs, you get the classic Brian quote, yeah, I just need 8 points as my last flex. But when this guy takes it, you're getting a floor of 10 to 12 with an upside of 15 to 18 consistently. So how he does it, I do not know. Not to mention the fact, people ragged on him, myself included, for making that trade. And you know what? It worked out. Because he wasn't in the back end of the 4th and he wasn't in the back end of the 5th. Because he didn't like those picks and somehow still managed to find value. And it looks like things are trending up for this team. So I don't know who your quarterback's going to be, but I'm sure you're going to figure that out eventually. Let's get into it. With no quarterback there and Alex Smith already picked up, well, there's not much you can do. Something tells me you're looking at Sam Darnold. Anyway, let's talk about why this team is going to be effective. It's the 1-2 punch of Michael Thomas and AJ Green, courtesy of the Johnny J. Fresh team of last year. That was the combo. One thing about AJ Green, you no longer want him as a wide receiver 1, but if you can get him at a wide receiver 2, you'll take it. Michael Thomas looked like a stud. I don't know why he's questionable, Allen. I'm pretty sure it's nothing serious, because if it was, oh man, I just hyped you up for no reason. I'm sorry, kid. Chris Thompson and Dion Lewis, this is what I'm talking about, okay? Dion Lewis is more than a third down back. I think he's actually a phenomenal player, somebody I'm very interested in. Chris Thompson, you know what? When he's limited, he's got a really good burst, and he looked pretty freaking healthy for all the negative talk about him. Those four guys alone, I think, on an average week, could combine average. Keep in mind, I'm saying average. 50 points. Do the math. If you get 10 from 4 players, that's 40 points. But I think these guys have such a good floor that it might even be 50. Let's go to, I don't want to type up Allen. I can't keep ignoring Lewis. Lewis, dealt with a lot of injuries week 1. Marquise Goodwin, who I think the whole fantasy community was very hyped for, goes down. Now, luckily, it's not a lower leg injury. That would be terrible. You're lucky it's a quad injury. Now, obviously, for those of you who do not know, the quad has 4 heads. That shouldn't be that much of a problem. The only time it'll hurt is if he gets tackled on there. And it's going to be a pain adjustment thing. I think, honestly, shoot him up with some painkillers. He'll be good to go. Demaryius Thomas and Jamison Crowder. I did say Demaryius Thomas was not going to have a good week, and until the touchdown, he wasn't. I said it was going to be a Sanders week, but hey, maybe Case Keenum can make them relevant. So maybe I was wrong on Demaryius Thomas, but it's against the Oakland Raiders. Demaryius Thomas is projected for 12, give him 15. Jamison Crowder against the Indianapolis Colts. Now, I am not big. I had Jamison Crowder. This is not a grudge thing on Jamison Crowder. I like him a lot against the Indianapolis Colts. In fact, I like all the Redskins wide receivers. I think Crowder is going to have a field day. The only thing that's going to stink is that they only really need Crowder when they kind of need to throw the ball. And last week, they didn't need to throw the ball. They might not need to throw the ball this week. Crowder, oh man. I mean, I just don't see the upside with this guy. He's a very low floory type of guy. He's not a touchdown guy at all either. I'll say he only got 3 points last week. You know what? And he started out slow last year when I had him, but that was because he had a hamstring injury. He's healthy. He's good to go. I won't argue with Yahoo. I'll give 11 to 12. Kareem Hunt will find the end zone, because if he doesn't, dude, I'm so sorry you have to deal with this Pat Mahomes BS. Look, a lot of people can talk about Kareem Hunt and say that Andy Reid uses multiple backs. Well, that's true. But let's look at how they scored in the red zone. It was all these trick, gimmicky Madden BS plays. That's probably not going to be happening again, because Pittsburgh's going to look at it on the film. I think Kareem Hunt at least is going to get you what he has, 15 points, because he's still involved in the passing game. And, well, not as much as he was last year, which is a little bit concerning, but he'll find the end zone. Alex Collins, I know you're hyped because Kenneth Dixon back on the IR. What a shock. Against Cincy. If there's one guy I actually am big on in this game, it's Alex Collins, because it's a boring Thursday night game. You're going to get 60 yards and a touch, which accumulates to 12 points. But I don't think those guys are going to be enough to stop those 4 that I mentioned for Allen. And speaking of which, my analysis on Jack Doyle is kind of how I figured what's going to happen. Jack Doyle can get a lot of targets, but he's not going to get the ones that count, and that's in the red zone. I think they're going to use Ebron for that role, which stinks because Ebron puts a dent in Doyle's value, and Doyle puts a dent in Ebron's value. So that sucks for you. Jordan Reed will score against the Indianapolis Colts. Jordan Reed, enjoy it while it lasts, Allen. Enjoy it while it lasts. That's all I gotta say. And this is where I think things get a little bit difficult. Saquon Barkley, we know the run. Everybody went hyped for it. This guy's gonna be a first-round talent. Oh, Philip Lindsay. I'm actually, 3 years ago, I don't think Lewis would have ever claimed this guy. Philip Lindsay is now projected 10.43 points. A lot of people are raving about this guy. Now, honestly, I didn't know who the heck this guy was. I watched some highlight film of him. He's very small. And I think he plays with a lot of heart because he runs with authority for a small dude, trying to prove to everybody that he can play in this league. And he's probably already a Denver fan favorite. But like I said in the beginning, I think this guy might be Austin Eckler-esque. I don't think you're going to get the floor of what you're hoping, 10 per week without a touchdown and 15 to 16. Because if you did, you essentially just found yourself an RB2. I can't see that happening. I think he's more of the 8 points off a floor and a 15, which still, I guess, for right now isn't that bad. But here's the interesting thing about the Denver's snap count usage. And obviously, in week 1, there's going to be a shit ton of committees. you got Philip Lindsay, right? Lindsay and Royce Freeman were on the field. Snap count percentage was around 30 to 35, and Booker was in there for 20, except Booker sucks, so they're not going to give him the ball. So kind of do the math. You might be looking at 60-40 in the favor of Freeman. Best case scenario for Philip Lindsay. Bilal Powell. Well, you know how I feel about Bilal Powell. I think he's very, very underrated. I just think he'll never get his opportunity as the Jets to be an RB2. Some people think he'd be bounce back because he is the guy who does catch. This does look like it's going to be a hard-fought, contested game. The thing about Isaiah Crowell is that he's an aggressive runner, and there's always an injury waiting to happen because of that. So when that day happens, Bilal Powell will be back on the radar, but I can't get too hyped for him yet. Then when we look, we got the Rams and the Chargers. Rams D is a really good play. Chargers D is a really good play. Battle of LA. All right, time for me to pick a winner now. Obviously, Allen doesn't have a quarterback now. I'm assuming this guy's going to pick up a quarterback here. The keys to victory for Allen. The big four that I just named, they got to go off. Because I think if two of them don't, I think Lewis has a chance to get back into this game. Here's my... Oh, how did I not talk about Russell Wilson? I'm sorry. Sorry, I don't think this is a good game. I see the guy struggling a lot. I'm going to say, if you wanted me to make a bold prediction, I'll say he gets 15 to 17. I think this guy's not going to have any time to throw the ball. Oh, man. Seahawks are in for a rude awakening on Monday night. I'm assuming, and if we want to talk about D.D. Westbrook, it's against the New England Patriots. People are hyping him up to be this possession guy now and whatnot, so hey, why not? I think Allen's got a lot of interesting pieces on the bench as well. I'm not going to tell him who to start because I think that's just being very disrespectful to the opponent that you're playing. I'm just now analyzing about what you have. Obviously, with the Fournette injury, you're going to have to roll Hunt and Collins. They both look like they could score touchdowns, but I think the keys to victory for Lewis, you need DT to get a touchdown, you need both those running backs to get a touchdown, and you need Crowder to start being involved in the passing game. A lot needs to happen, and I know it's not fair because you got the injury bug early, because Marquise Goodwin against the Detroit Lions, maybe he wouldn't be that great of a matchup, but I feel like you can burn Darius Slay for one play. So with that, I think the injury bug is too much to overcome. I'm going to have to go with Allen and start 2-0. No, this is not the last one. Second to last one. I got ahead of myself. So I actually think this could be the number 2 matchup of the week, and it simply is due to the fact that the Steelers are at home. This is why I put this as the number 2 matchup of the week. Of all the losing teams other than Rob Coffey, this was the one team along with... no, he won. I'm sorry. He didn't put up a lot of points week 1. Sorry about that. Brady against Jacksonville. I'm talking, by the way, Paul versus Andre. Andre came out with the most impressive victory in my personal opinion. He overcame a 140 spot by the champ and came out. Let's be honest, though, I need to give a little bit of a, not a hot take, just a take on Andre. I think year in and year out, consistently, if there's one thing Andre consistently does, he is the September team. This team starts out very, very hot, but it cools off a little bit. But if Le'Veon Bell doesn't come back, this team's a force to be reckoned with. And I still stick by Joe Mixon. I'm not going to change my stance on that because I don't want to. Anyway, Tom Brady versus Ben Roethlisberger. Ben has to be healthy at home. If Ben is not healthy, the game's over. Andre wins. Tom Brady against the Jacksonville Jaguars, I actually don't like at all. I think Tom Brady puts up 11 points. I think this guy is going to be rattled all game. And let's be honest, New England always has one stinker in September. It's going to be at the Jacksonville Jaguars. T.Y. Hilton and Tyler Lockett taking on A.B. and Keenan Allen. No matter what the circumstances are, unless Ben Roethlisberger is hurt, I will never go against the combo of Antonio Brown and Keenan Allen. Happy, Paul? Running backs, though. Zeke and Joe Mixon. This is where I think... Now, if he proves me wrong, wow. I'll be very, very impressed. But I do think this is where Mixon runs into brick walls. I don't want to think that it's like me saying he sucks. I don't like their line. I don't think the volume is going to be there enough for him to finish as an RB1. Zeke Elliott will be fine. Kenyon Drake. This could be a very sneaky play. I know everybody was getting freaked out because Frank Gore was on the field. He could get a lot of catches for the Miami Dolphins. Marshawn Lynch against the Denver Broncos. Carson and not Penny, but Carson looked very good running the ball. Can Marshawn Lynch do that? Well, the guys need to be healthy. He's going to need to be healthy. John Gruden is going to learn what happened against the Rams and not have so much of a pass-happy attack. He's got to go back to running the ball and feeding the beast. But if the beast isn't there, you can forget it. Ben Watson, tight end versus tight end empty. Did you pick up oh my God. Who do you have? Paul, I don't even know who the heck you're going to start. But bottom line is I'm not big on any of them. I'll project you for 7 points at your tight end. Ben Watson against the Cleveland Browns. Very sneaky play. You start any Saint at home if you have to. Lamar Miller. Big game. I'll say it again. Big game against the Tennessee Titans. James Conner. Wow. Oh, whoa. This guy's a stud. Simply for the fact that he is taking over for Le'Veon Bell. Congratulations on that. Wow. Amari Cooper. And your flex. Another dud game. And look, man, I'm very sad. I actually like Amari Cooper. This guy's going to lay 2 duds for you in a row. Denver against Philly. Paul, what are you doing? Ryan Fitzpatrick just threw 5 touchdowns. Got like 50 points. What are you doing? I'm just kidding. No, you're good on that. Alright, time for me to pick a winner. I thought this would be a lot more competitive, but now that I'm looking at it, you don't even have a flex in right now. I don't know, but I don't think it becomes more of a factor. I don't think there's any way you can compete with a Amari Cooper against Chris Harris matchup versus Lamar Miller and James Conner. The reason why I think I was so hyped for it was because the Browns. The Steelers are at home, and I think Andre would respect the fact that whenever you have Big Ben and AB at home, there's a possibility that both of them can combine for 50 points. And I think that's what makes this matchup very scary. Keenan Allen very scary. Kenyon Drake's the wild card. Paul, for you to win, Ben needs to throw 4+ touchdowns. Okay, no, I'm getting that. 3 to 4 touchdowns. 2 of them need to go to AB. Keenan Allen needs to find the end zone, and Kenyon Drake at least needs to hit 15. If you get that start, you're essentially getting around 70 with those guys, and you need to hope that everybody else hits close to 10 to even have a chance. But the thing is, it's possible, because when Pittsburgh is at home, you feel very confident about the situation with your team. But on the flip side, now, where Ben's going to explode, I don't think Brady has a very good game. This would be the one time I think somebody would ever bench Tom Brady. I didn't even think I didn't analyze T.Y. Hilton and Tyler Lockett. I apologize. Hilton against the Washington Redskins. Andrew Luck's going to have a problem with the line. I don't think you're going to see T.Y. Hilton go as deep as he used to in years past until they scheme up some plays to figure out how to go deep. If you recall, hold on, T.Y. Hilton. If you recall with T.Y. Hilton, the only reason why that guy went down the field, all right, a few times was because they had to scheme for it. And his touchdown was a slant on the end zone, which was encouraging to see, by the way, because that's not T.Y. Hilton's forte to line up isolated on the outside at slant for the end zone. He usually lines up in the slot when it comes to the red zone. So maybe they scheme to get their best wide receiver in space. Tyler Lockett. Now I understand. But Doug Baldwin out. You want the hype to happen. I can't see it, man. Lockett's a phenomenal player, but the situation for him to be relevant in Seattle is just really hard to bank on. Despite AB and Ben going off, there's a lot of duds on the side for Paul. You don't have a tight end in. You don't know who your flex is going to be yet. And Amari Cooper is not going to do anything. And I think that there's so much guaranteed floor with Andre's team, it's going to be hard to compete with that. With that being said, when you look at the box score, Andre got nervous last week and pulled it off. I think this is going to be one of the more high-scoring games this week. I think you're looking at a victory from Andre. Now, I keep raining on Andre, so I'm sorry, Paul. It's not that I'm ignoring you. let's be honest, we saw what Andre's upside is at 160 points. Or what did you put up? I think whatever. It was between 150 and 160. That was certainly hitting his upside. And let's not forget, Zeke Elliott didn't have that good of a game. But that's the upside of this team. If you ask me what the floor is, usually what I like to do is I minus about 30 points. I think the floor of this team is at least 130. Yeah, I said that. You got a good quarterback, check. You got a number 1 wide receiver, check. You even have some decent options on the bench. Oh, and you have 2 guaranteed number 1s and a guy who's a number 2 running back. And yes, I am talking as James Conner as the number 1 running back, not Joe Mixon. Tell me a flaw. The worst case scenario for Andre in the long term is Le'Veon Bell comes back, and now you just have to figure out a flex. And guess what? Yo, I'm good, Nick. I got Golden Tate. All right, cool. This is a really good team. It's a good team. Good teams win games. I think the final score is going to be 130 Andre to 121 Paul. It's going to be a good matchup. All right. We don't have a lot of a sample size for this fantasy season. So it came down to me what was going to be the matchup of the week. Well, record kind of would indicate it. And close point total. The only matchup that I saw that was close in point total from last week. And it's not... it's 1-0. It is a rivalry. We'll talk about it again. Came from the coaching tree. Lost to the master in the Super Bowl. But then got his revenge in the semi-finals of 2 seasons ago. I'm talking about myself and Max. There's been, I don't want to say bad blood this year. I wouldn't say that. I would just... it's funny that 2 of the running backs he drafted, one is a healthy scratch, the other is just not healthy. And I somehow had the backups by coincidence. So I'm going to kind of troll a little bit here, but this should be a very interesting matchup. Last week, Maxwell's team went off. I'll tell you, off. As far as my team is concerned, you could look at it 2 ways. Was that the floor that we saw last week? Possibly. But at the same token, we did benefit from a team not putting up many points. But if you went out of week 1 to get between 110 and 120, that's okay. I think that's all right for a floor. Max certainly did hit the upside with 140 a week. Let's get into it. Jimmy G and Andrew Luck. All right. Andrew Luck is an interesting play because I think, you're going to get touchdowns, you're going to get yards, but you're going to get a lot of turnovers with Andrew Luck. I think Jimmy Garoppolo, me personally, my wow factor in this game is going to be Jimmy Garoppolo. I think the guy bounces back tremendously. Even without Marquise Goodwin, he finally lost his first game in the NFL. The emotion I saw on that sideline, he was so mad at himself. They are at home. They're going to forget what happened in Minnesota. They're going to come out guns blazing. 49ers are going to demolish the Detroit Lions in a huge shootout. I love Jimmy Garoppolo in this one. Jarvis Landry and Marvin Jones taking on Tyreek Hill and Josh Gordon. All right, here we go. I can't say enough about how much of a beast this guy Tyreek Hill is. Okay, I had him ranked over a lot of wide receivers. I had him ranked over A.J. Green. I had him ranked over Mike Evans. Had him ranked over Stephon Diggs. I'm very, very, very high on him. The only guy I did not have him ranked over in that kind of range was Devontae Adams. I think after Devontae Adams, I had Tyreek Hill ranked. The guy is phenomenal, and now you got a guy who's got a cannon of an arm. You know what's even more fantastic is the fact that most of his damage was not on deep balls. It was just him juking out the defense. Bottom line, guys, don't play zone if you're worried about Tyreek Hill. It's not like you can cover him man-to-man, but you got to double this guy or send extra blitz packages and hope Mahomes can't get it out in time. That's the only way you're going to stop him. You're projected for 16. Well, it's the road game. You're going to get 20 out of Tyreek Hill, and it's going to kill me. Josh Gordon, interesting. Now officially listed as a starter. We don't know what's going to happen. Are they going to kind of ease him into the offense? I don't know what's going to happen now. Todd Haley is trying to get him motivated, but Todd Haley is a no-nonsense type of guy. This does look like it could be a shootout of a game. I think if you have stock invested in Cleveland and New Orleans, I think you're starting every single piece. That includes your Ben Watsons, that includes your David Njoku's, that includes your, dare I say, Traquan Smiths. I don't know. Josh Gordon could be sneaky. I mean, you did draft him hoping that he was going to play, and guess what? He showed up, and as far as I know, he's passed his drug test. Jarvis Landry did look very, very good. The one thing I am very encouraged by Jarvis Landry is he's not delegated or regulated, I'm trying to look for the word, to this guy in the slot only. He caught a lot of passes on the outside, and he's had the most time to work with Tyrod Taylor, so that's a positive. Marvin Jones. Here's my take on Marvin Jones and the Detroit Lions, if you heard of my first take when I first broke this down in this podcast. There is enough target share for every Lions receiver to be relevant this year. Why? Let's think about it. Can they run the ball? No. Okay. Do they have a tight end? No. Okay. Do they have a running back that gets a ton of catches? No. And it's because they use like 5 in a game. Guys, obviously Stafford threw way too much. And then if you look at the target share, Galladay had 12. What the heck is his name? Golden Tate had 15. Marvin Jones had 8. If Matt Stafford throws for 30 times a game, worst case scenario, he's probably going to throw a lot more than that. You're probably going to give around 8 average to each guy. They all have their different roles too from what I've seen, and maybe it's because they had to adjust to how the Jets were blitzing, which is why I think Galladay looked like such a stud, because they were not rolling coverage over to his side. Marvin Jones was the guy they were trying to take out. Marvin Jones is the guy who runs all the deep routes. Golden Tate, we know what he is at this point, who was not involved in the first half, by the way. And last but not least, Kenny Galladay, I think, is going to be that other possession guy over the middle of the field, and he could win a lot of jump balls. He's a big guy. Somebody even gave him the name Babytron. I don't know. But I think the Lions can bounce back against the San Francisco 49ers. So I would say it's a big bounce back performance. Let's be personally. This is an interesting. Woof. Look at this matchup in the running back department. Melvin Gordon and Christian McCaffrey versus David Johnson and Adrian Peterson. Whoa, Adrian Peterson. That's scary against that Indianapolis Colts front. David Johnson. The guy gets enough volume for him to be reliable. I'm not going to hate on David Johnson. Yeah, it's the Rams. I know. But come on. Really? Melvin Gordon and Christian McCaffrey. Now, this is the staple of my team. I do like both of these guys and their matchups. So, I've got no beef with the project. Well, okay. Pause. Alright, I just feel like I would just have them at 15 each for every week. I think going close to 20 is a little excessive, but I like them. David Njoku and Trey Burton. These are two guys that are looking to bounce back. Trey Burton. We know the deal with the Seattle Seahawks. Shaky over the middle of the defense. Now, the Broncos tight ends didn't do anything, but guess what? The Broncos don't have a tight end. Chicago does. David Njoku, the only reason why you're playing David Njoku is simply for the fact that you like the upside.